Hi everyone, it's Katie, and I've just been playing with my tarot cards, and I realized what I was doing was exactly what I told you guys prior to my hiatus that I would share with you, and that is a bit of tarot therapy. Now, this is an example of something I do a lot with the tarot, but it's not something that, I've sat down and fleshed out how and why it works. It's just something that I find myself doing every now and then when I feel a bit stuck. And when I feel like a tarot reading isn't really what I need, I just need, I guess, to kind of see how I'm feeling, and to kind of just start brainstorming some different ways of, moving forward or making the most of that situation, whatever it may be. So with this exercise, as I said, it's one I do quite a lot. I use the minor arcana of the tarot, and basically I just go through and I pick a card that kind of represents how I'm feeling. Now, sometimes I do this based on the meaning of the card, other times I do it based on just what it looks like. It doesn't really matter. I just pick a card that kind of represents a certain aspect of how I'm feeling. Now, as with any moment in life, you won't be just feeling one thing. But if there's a certain feeling that's just troubling you or sitting on your chest, focus on that feeling. And then just find a card in the minor arcana, that's how I do it, using the minor arcana, that just kind of best represents that feeling for you now. So let's just say I pick the Eight of Swords for how I'm feeling right now. Now, this is a card that comes up for me a lot in these sort of exercises, and I think it's really quite relatable. So let's just say, as a synopsis, we're feeling really quite trapped and victimized by our own thoughts, and then in turn how they're making us feel. So from there, what I like to do is I pick the card that comes before it in the Suit of Swords and the card that follows it in the Suit of Swords. I'm just going to try and make this fit as best as I can. And basically what we're doing here is we're assuming that the suits describe a linear journey from Ace to 10. And right now we're at the 8. So I like to look at the 7 and just see if it has any insights, any bits of information to offer me as to how I got here into the 8. And then moving forward into the 9, what I can expect if I maintain this trajectory. If I don't change anything, if I keep doing exactly what I'm doing, what's that going to look like at my next step? Now, I know not everyone sees the suits as a linear path, and I don't really all the time either, but right now we're just using tarot as a tool, and I find this a useful way to use the tarot. It's really just getting a sense of where we're at right now. And so this just gives us a bit of context sometimes. And I don't know about you, but I very often find that the Eight of Swords leads into the Nine of Swords if I don't choose to do something differently here. So what I like to do next is pick out the each of the 8s in the other suits. Doesn't matter what order, really. And place them down next to our Eight of Swords. And this, I think, is the most helpful part of the exercise. This gets us thinking about what we can do differently. What is happening in these 3 cards that we're not doing here in the Eight of Swords in our experience right now? The reason I find this so helpful is because actually I think the Eight of Swords depicts this quite well, is that sometimes when we're caught up in our own thoughts and feelings, it can be really hard to think outside our own experience. And I think that's why it's so hard often to break out of a funk or to kind of nurse yourself through depression or to sit with feelings of anxiety. It's so hard to imagine other options, to think outside of what you're experiencing right now. So that is the purpose of looking at these other 8s right now. And each time you do this exercise, a different thing will pop out to you. So for example, you might look at the 8 of Cups and think, yeah, I really am holding on to something that I need to let go of. I need to be doing what this guy's doing, rather than letting everything keep me trapped, keep me feeling trapped. The 8 of Pentacles might remind you of something that you need to be working on. The 8 of Pentacles might remind you of the importance of investing time and energy into building the things that you care about, mastering skills that are valuable to you. So I usually spend most time here looking at how these 3 extra cards compare to where I am in the Eight of Swords, and just kind of sitting with them and seeing if they can provide me any new options. I think that's really the key here, is seeing what else is available to us right now in our situation? What alternatives are available to us outside of being trapped in our own thoughts? Now I'm going to move you down a little bit. And the next step I tend to do is to look at the next number in each of the three suits. So I hope you can see, at least get an idea of what we're doing. So this can kind of serve as either some encouragement as to why we want to change and do something differently in the eights, or it can also serve as a warning. It just provides us some more information about what taking these actions or these choices might lead to, if that makes sense. So for example, we might look at the Eight of Pentacles and see this beautiful, independent, happy, successful woman, and be reminded of the fact that working on something that we care about, spending time investing in our own skills, really has the potential to lead us here. And that might serve as some incentive or some encouragement, and remind us of the value of this Eight of Pentacles. The Nine of Wands might serve more as a warning about the Eight of Wands. The Eight of Wands really is about that fast, quick action. So the Nine of Wands might be reminding us that if we take on too much too quickly, we might be left feeling a little worse for wear. So that's not to say that the Eight of Wands isn't a available option to us. It might be at this point. I guess it's just serving as a reminder to take some precautions if we choose to take that path. So I guess that's it mostly for this exercise. Obviously you can keep going, and I often spend quite a bit of time with this process here, journaling, because I really do find, like I said, it's getting out of my own experience, getting out of that box that I might feel trapped in, and just being reminded of all of the different options available to me. You can, if you want to, keep adding on to this. You might want to look at the tens in this case, or sometimes I find it helpful to look at the sevens in each of the other suits, because we've looked at the Seven of Swords, so it might be helpful to have a look at, I don't know where my Seven of Cups is, yeah. And kind of more have a look at maybe what we weren't doing here. What were we neglecting back here that led us here? For example, that might be something helpful. I mean, like I said, you don't have to be focusing on the rigid structure of tarot. If the meanings help you in getting valuable input or insight out of this process, that's good. But other times it might just literally be the picture. This is really just an exercise. I find it really helpful to get things out on the table when I feel like they're separate from me, when I feel like they're not just all up in my head, going around, whirling around at 100 miles an hour. I stop and I focus and I can look at how I'm feeling, and I can just start to have a look at my different options and what might have led me here and what I might have to look forward to. I think it's more just a helpful process to just kind of sit and be mindful with our experience right now, and then to give some context to it and take a look at the different options we have. That's really what this exercise is about, and you can do whatever you want with it to make it work for you. Now, I've used just the Rider-Waite for this exercise, obviously, but I find it really helpful to use different decks as well. The Anarchy is a really great one to use for this exercise, just because it's so picture booky. The cards really do tell a story. So this is a deck that if you're really not sure how you're feeling and you can't quite pinpoint it with a tarot card, Anarchy might be a bit easier to do this with, just because the cards really tell a story and they're not reliant on that, you know, that symbolism, that esoteric symbolism that a lot of other tarot decks will use quite a bit. I think the key is to have pictorial pips. For me, definitely work best for this exercise, just because it is so much easier to see yourself in the card, see your experience in the card, and to then start brainstorming about options. You know, you don't have to rely on a meaning. You can really just take a look at what this person is doing. Oh, he's walking away, maybe I should try that. Now, I will say I usually do this exercise this way, just because I think that's easier to kind of see you know, this linear journey, and then if we step out of that, what options do we have? But that didn't fit on the screen. So just if you're wondering, you might find that more helpful to kind of start with this linear journey and then add options onto that. I just wanted to mention that. So I mean, this works for any card that you pick. I know the Four of Cups is another one that I often find myself picking for this one, or even the Four of Swords. I don't know, I just find this exercise really helpful, and I'd love to hear if you find it useful too. And if you have any questions, if you need anything clarified, feel free to leave a comment or message me and I'll get back to you. So I hope you found this interesting. Until next time, much love and bye.